dive into it. Awesome. So I'll just share my screen here and move everyone off. Oh. Cool. Awesome. And so thank you everyone for coming today to Power BI for Enviros. We missed last month because we had the Radicad Power BI Summit, which was a really big conference that went for about a week. So we were presenting at that, and we think that lots of the Power BI community would have been attending that one as well. So we gave April a miss, but now we're back. We're going to be on every month. So thank you so much for coming today. So just a recap of who we are for those people who are new to our virtual meetup group. The Power BI for Enviros group, we're a virtual group, and it's all about sharing case studies, learning new tips and tricks, and empowering other people in the environmental and water industry on their Power BI journey. So today we're really privileged to have with us Meg Pillay and Rhiannon Ken, who are going to be presenting on the DELWP Vic Water Grid online dashboard. So this is a really cool study. It's a really great showcase of how Power BI can be used as a public communication tool, really for stakeholder engagement. So looking forward to seeing more about that, seeing that in action. And also Sam Fisher is presenting, giving us a rundown of all the big announcements which happened at the Microsoft Business Application Summit earlier this month. So MBAS, for those of you who haven't heard of it, is one of Microsoft's biggest conferences of the year. It's been run virtually the last couple of years, which is great. So all the sessions are still available as on-demand recordings if anyone is keen to catch up on anything there. But what they do is they announce kind of the trends in Power BI and what all the new features are they have on the roadmap for the next year and beyond. So there's heaps of cool stuff happening in Power BI. A bit of housekeeping. So we're trialing Zoom for this session. We probably will revert back to Teams next month when we have better internet connection. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, you can still type your questions in the chat as you think of them, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end of each of the sessions. So just for your reference, the session is being recorded and it'll be shared afterwards on the Discovery Eye YouTube channel and blog as well. And before we dive in to the session, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're presenting today and pay their respect to the elders, past, present, and also Aboriginal community elders of the communities where everyone else is dialing in from as well. So just a quick plug for our event sponsors, Discovery Eye. So myself and Christian, we're co-founders of Discovery Eye. So we run and host this meetup group. If anyone is keen on exploring Power BI for the environmental or water industry, that's the industry that we specialize in. So we provide Power BI training and mentoring. We work with Daniel Marsh-Patrick as well, who's a guru in custom visual development. We do kind of end-to-end BI reporting, infographics and animations, and also custom web applications as well. So if you are interested in this space, feel free just to reach out to us, get in touch from our website, or just email us directly. So that's it from my end. So we're going to get started with Rhiannon and Meg, who will present on the newly developed and recently released digital Vic Water Grid, which includes a series of Power BI reports, which are published online to their public website as well. So I'll share a link to that in the chat. Everyone can kind of log on, have a look at it as we talk through it as well. And then afterwards, we've got Sam Fisher, who's presenting all about the new features coming to Power BI in 2021. And cool, then the next meetup we're going to have is in June sometime. We're going to have a Power BI 101 session really focused on beginners, giving kind of tips and tricks, showing a few quick demos on how to get started. So we'll release more details on that as we go as well. So I think now over to Meg and Rhiannon. I'll continue to share my screen just so we can walk through this tool, but I'll hand it over to you guys.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Meg. So I'm from DELWP, the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. And as Alice has given us a fantastic introduction, I'm going to talk a little bit about the grids. Essentially, we call it the biennial statement, where we've consolidated information across the state to talk about sort of urban water security, rural water security. And Rhiannon will sort of talk a little bit more about that. But just starting off introductions, I'm Meg. And I'll throw that over to Rhiannon to introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon, and I was also at DELWP when we developed this project. And as Meg said, we're here to talk about the Victorian Water Grid and Power BI, and these kind of series of interactive dashboards that we developed with Discovery Eye. So we developed them with Alice and Christian. So shout out to them for inviting us to present today as well. And as you can see, Alice has shared her screen. And the structure of the presentation is going to be, Meg's going to talk a little bit about the drivers behind this project, and then some of the decisions we faced when we were conceptualizing these dashboards. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the design process and the elements behind that, as well as some of the key challenges we faced in developing these dashboards. Yeah. I think it's Meg, if you want to kick us off.
Yep. All right. I'm going to start a little bit about, well, what were the need? What's the drivers? What's the point? Why did we do this? So the grid oversight team is relatively new in DELWP. I'm going to say relatively new, like since 2018. 2018, we developed a consolidated perspective of the state, kind of showing what a message about urban water security and rural water security. It was a PDF. It was pretty light on. It was the first time we'd done anything like that. And just as a little bit of context, the state has a lot of information regarding water from water corporations, from other groups in DELWP as well. But there was no real place to sort of look at the state as a whole and say what's happening from a broader sort of holistic perspective. So that's kind of where the grid oversight team came in. And we do say it from a grid perspective, and we say grid because what we mean is that we have in Victoria a lot of connected water systems, which means in a valley trade, so from catchment to catchment, using pipes, rivers, stuff like that. So that's why we call it a grid, because it's essentially connected. And I think the terminology maybe comes from the power grid, and we're trying to sort of say we have something like that for the water system. So the driver is that we have a lot of information. It's really disparate. It's from different groups, water corporations, and we really wanted to consolidate that and say, this is the state perspective. We did talk a lot about, well, what is it? Is it for the industry or is it for the public? And we did sort of essentially settle on that this is mostly a communication piece for more on that sort of public perspective, as the industry kind of needs a little bit more of in-depth information, and the dashboards don't really go into that kind of detail. So we also wanted to prep the public, considering that the sustainable water strategy, so if everyone sort of knows what the water industry is like, the sustainable water strategies are these 10-year strategies that consolidate a region. At the moment, it's the South Central region, and tells them, what are we going to do for the next 50 years to make sure that our water is secure? The work that we did here is a bit of a prep to say, hey, here are some of the challenges, triggers coming on board, and the SWUS, Sustainable Water Strategy, is going to tell you what we're going to do about it. So it's a really resilient system in general, and that is also one of the things we wanted to show. If you scroll down a bit, and a little bit more, yeah, we'll keep going. Yeah, to this one. You can see, I think, schematically how connected Victoria is. The purple ones being the pipes, the blue being the rivers. So relatively connected. We have quite a lot of resilience there because it means we can move water to where we need it to go with, you know, a little bit of rules around it. So fantastic. We want to show this information. And so we considered, well, we did a PDF in 2018. Do we do a PDF again? And I think we all kind of came to the conclusion is the public don't really read PDF. It's a lot of information to try and understand just from reading something. I think the way you can link the visuals here to the information makes it easier to understand what people are talking about. So if you choose an asset, you see the asset on the map, you read the little blurb. It's, I think, a lot harder to do that in a PDF than it is in this sort of interactive space. So we decided, yep, we're going to go interactive. And then we decided, well, what do we actually use? And so the way we kind of got into Power BI is Alice actually did a bit of work on some previous work DELWP had done. And I was very impressed with, I think, the visual capability of Power BI. So I'd used a lot of business intelligence tools before, and the major ones being sort of like that Tableau versus Power BI perspective. And I think the flexibility of Power BI was one of the things that really drew us into saying, yeah, we want to use Power BI to do this work. So that's kind of the reason why we went on the Power BI journey. And yeah, I will now throw to Rhiannon to talk a little bit more in detail about these dashboards.
Sure. So as you might have noticed, if Alice, if you could maybe just scroll down through the page. So as you can see on the screen, there are 5 dashboards we built. So there was the Water Challenges, the Victorian Water Grid, the Urban Potential Augmentations, Rural Water Challenges, and then Environmental Water, Traditional Owner, and Recreational Water. And those last 3 being tabs in this one dashboard. And there are a couple of reasons why we chose to break down the information in this way and visualize it in this way. First one being, as you can see, as Meg said, the Victorian Water Grid, the connected and man-made infrastructure that allows water to move around the state. That was our work area. We thought that was a key dashboard to represent. And Discovery Eye also visualized our work program with an infographic at the top, which you may have seen. Secondly, infographic. Secondly, Alice, if you could scroll down to the challenges dashboard. We wanted to give context to this piece of work, and context that was impactful to the public, namely to visualize Victoria's water challenges. We thought this was really important, especially as in the metro and urban areas, that water security, and those questions about water security isn't so visible and isn't such a day-to-day concern for the public. So we really wanted to make those challenges visual. And especially as they involve looking into the future and future planning for impacts of climate change. We wanted to highlight this to give context to the rest of the. And then thirdly, we decided to align these dashboards with the types of water users. So the urban, rural, environmental, traditional owner, and recreation. These water users are recognizable to the public and the community. They are known to be the water users. So we thought it was important to align with that existing knowledge. And that also made it easier to then link through to other pieces of work being done by the department, being done by water corporations, or being done around the state. So for example, the urban water dashboard links through to water corporations' urban water strategies, which makes sense. So we wanted to make that, by aligning in that way, we thought it'd be easier to jump off into other works. So the second thing I'm going to talk a bit about is the design elements for these dashboards. So why you can click this button and why you can click this asset and why they looked the way they looked. And because we were designing this as a public-facing tool, that look and feel, that user experience was really important. And that was something that Discovery Eye really helped push forward with us. We had a lot of back and forth about where should buttons be, what is intuitive to the public who maybe don't really have experience with using this type of tool. So at the beginning of the process, we had a small co-design workshop, and then Discovery Eye built us a secure web page, which had prototypes and drafts of these dashboards. which then we shared with our stakeholders. And we gave them the opportunity to kind of click and explore and to make mistakes and to not really understand, or to understand what we were doing and what was being presented to them. And we got heaps of feedback by doing that. And the stuff that made sense to us, because we were in the grit of it, our stakeholders were like, oh, I would not have intuitively clicked that button. I would not have intuitively clicked that slide. I was confused by this. And that was so invaluable to us. Is there anything I'm missing on that, Meg, I think? Because we did spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out the look and feel.
Yeah, I think what was really good is that we had a really good iterative process with this. We created prototypes, we got feedback immediately from those prototypes. We took them out to stakeholder groups multiple times. And so a lot of the visuals and the graphics and the design of all this was built with everyone in an iterative process. So the first sorts of dashboards we made are not necessarily what they ended up being. So it was really important to do that process with everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit to was some of the key challenges that we faced when we were developing these dashboards. The first one being, as Meg stated, the lack of a statewide consolidated perspective meant that one of our key challenges was the data, and finding data from locations across the state that could actually fit together and build a narrative. So, for example, whilst each water corporation has data for their location, not all the data is recorded in the same format, it's not all published in the same format, and it doesn't all follow the same framework, which means trying to bring it together to visualize is very challenging. For example, the environmental water dashboard. This is visualizing the View's seasonal watering plan, which, whilst that does apply the same framework across systems, these are systems that have environmental flows. Not every system has environmental flows. So we couldn't apply this to every system. And there's just an example of the fact that whilst there is data, it's not holistic, you can't be holistic, and it's kind of out there existing in different ways, which made it hard to pull together. Our second challenge, again, as Meg has highlighted, was creating a tool that was relevant to both the industry and the community, because those are two very different audiences with very different understandings, very different expectations, and very different perspectives on what they want from their information or how they want to be visualized. For example, in the urban water space, we had some data that was very meaningful, but very granular down to the postcode level. And whilst this could be very useful for water corporations, for the public, not so much, and not so appropriate to display in this context, in this project. So there was the challenge of marrying those two audiences. And then the third challenge, which is pretty self-explanatory, was kind of the challenge between building what we imagined and what would be visually engaging to the audience, and then compared to the information we actually have. So what we maybe saw in our heads didn't maybe match up with the information that was out there and what was possible to display. So that again was a challenge we faced. And I think maybe this is a broad statement, but the challenges we faced were this kind of visualizing the data. Yeah, pretty straightforward. But having said that, having said that we were faced with these challenges, the internal response that we got from these dashboards was amazing. There was so much positivity across the department for visualizing information in this way. And different stakeholders were so on board when we came to them and said, we'd like to visualize your information. And they were like, yes, really enthusiastic and excited to see their work presented in this way. And the opportunity it gave for that communication to the public that maybe doesn't exist in the water industry as much as it might in other spaces, and making that information accessible to everyone. We got this very positive response. So that was really, really prevalent and great to feel whilst we were, whilst this project came together. I think that might be kind of my last comment on this, but if Meg or Alice and Christian have anything they want to add, or if anyone's got any questions, we're super happy to take some.
I might just add an example, actually. What we imagined compared to the data that we have, that water movements tab, Alice, if you just want to click on it, we imagined this sort of amazing moving infographic where you would see the water move from one direction to the other, and it would show the capacity, the constraints of all of our assets. And we were getting much too ahead of ourselves. That kind of information was so hard to find. And so we really did have to pull back. So I think that's just a really good example of us going way ahead of the data.
Oh, that was a fantastic summary, and I really liked how you shared lots of the lessons we learned, because it was a very iterative project. Meg or Rhiannon, did one of you want to touch on maybe the process for updating the data now that it is public? Because I think this is something that is a really big benefit of Power BI. So it's not just used for creating a report, but also for creating more of a live report, which you can update internally. And this could be quite interesting for others who are thinking about creating a similar tool like this and wanting to get around some of those challenges of, okay, we've created this, it's in the public, but what do we do next if we want to make any of the changes as well to the data?
I might just add one word, Rhiannon, before maybe you want to answer, I'm not sure. But I thought one of the really good things about working with Power BI, and especially working with Discovery AI, is that all of the skills in developing the dashboards you see here, updating them, and I think all of the process from sort of beginning to end, it's all in-house, it's still within DELWP. And that means that I've seen sort of processes before where we've sort of gone out to a consultant to build us something like a monthly report. And then we have no idea how it works. We don't know how the back end connects. We have no idea what data it's actually connecting to. And then you go to do it the next month and you're like, oh, no, we need to probably go back to the consultant and get them to update everything. So one of the fantastic processes about what we built here is that the entire process from how we stored our data, update our data, connect it to our dashboards, which is hosted on one of the DELWP workspaces, to being published out here, all of that skill is sort of in-house. So Rhiannon, I don't know if you want to say more.
No, I think that's the kind of crux of it, and that that ability to update the data makes it such a great thing, and was something that, you know, our stakeholders are very much like, you know, we are getting more data, we're getting more data this year, we're getting more data next year.
Yeah.
How do we put trust in something? How do we put faith in something that is gonna maybe become outdated? And so that ability for the DELWP staff to update it in-house, and then that to it obviously wouldn't it doesn't publish directly onto the website. There's a holding space, so it's there is that protection just from mistakes or whatnot. But that ability to do that means that this project can be updated as figures change, as information changes, which was great, and it makes it a great is a great part of it, I think.
Makes it really long lasting as well. So it means that in 2 years, we don't have to rip all these dashboards down and then do a whole process like this again. It really does mean, oh, does this dashboard need evolution? Because now the water corps are saying their supply demand balances are at this level. That just means, okay, we can just update all of that data. Maybe we need to add a different visualization for it to make more sense now, but all of that can be done.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that is really important if you are thinking about doing a tool like this, and you did get some people in to help you who have that specialized skills. Power BI, it's a low code kind of drag and drop interface. It's a bit more complex than that, but it's not too hard to pick up. So Meg and Rhiannon, they don't have backgrounds in kind of data analytics. They're really tech savvy, but it's not really their day job. But it was really interesting working with the grid oversight team, because the team was a bit had quite a bit of movement internally. So it was really great. We got to have a lot of different people involved. I think we've trained up like maybe 3 or 4 people. There's some new people coming on soon. So it's not too tricky a system to learn. And just for people's reference, behind the scenes, it's not too sophisticated, because we wanted to make a tool that was really easy for people to update. So it's just got a master Excel spreadsheet sitting behind it. Has some other mapping data sets which are coming in, that's hosted locally in Power BI as WKT files. Has some of the infographics here, which are created in Adobe Illustrator. But majority of the data, the team can update themselves in-house. That spreadsheet's stored on their SharePoint site, so it links up. And then there's a 2-stage process. So one thing to be aware is, if you are creating a Power BI report like this, which is going to be published to the web for public viewing and consumption, you want to have some sort of level of process kind of in the middle, so that you can keep iterating on this dashboard, keep refining and updating it internally, and then have a separate dashboard, a separate link to the Power BI file, which is the live public version. So just make sure you have that kind of 2-stage process. That was one lesson that we learned kind of at the end, when we were thinking, okay, great, we're ready to publish. And then we had to make sure that we had that second layer of kind of review option available, so that just to make sure that the information you're releasing to the public has been curated.
Yeah, and I think this was updated just a few days ago, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was one maybe a typo or something in here.
Like
so
brackets with a question mark.
Yeah, so it is really a live document. Yeah, which is awesome. So it means that the team can update it. They don't have to go back to their DELWP IT, because it's managed in-house by the team in that Power BI workspace. That's a really good process, I think. We do have quite a few questions. Looks like lots of hands are raised. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Meg or Rhiannon?
Just on this topic about having that kind of that flow through of data, I think what's really good as well is that people were able to understand what we were doing, because we could show them the prototype dashboards. So when changes are made and developments are made, having that holding space where I'm losing my words. The data's updated, and then you can see it. It then helps people. It helps our stakeholders. It helps the executives. Helps other DELWP staff members see what we're talking about, and then we can publish it. So it made it that I think is a great part of having that break in that pipeline. I think was that ability that helps our audiences to understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. It's very important to have that review before it goes out, and have people to be able to see it physically in a dashboard rather than in just an Excel spreadsheet. It's very hard to pick up errors in just a table. So
yeah.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing a bit about the thought process of what sits behind the Vic Water Grid, kind of how it came to be, and then some of the cool features. So that was an amazing study to work on with you and the team. And I think it was very much a collaborative effort between not just DELWP, but all of the kind of Victorian Water Corps and the View and lots of other stakeholders as well. We've got a couple of questions, so feel free. We've got Simon Walker, if you wanted to ask out loud or type in the chat as well. Whatever you feel comfortable.
Thanks, Alice. So just for Rhiannon and Meg, so I'm the information analytics lead here at South East Water. So I'm very interested in the mapping you've done for all the water corps, because I think there's probably an opportunity, because we've gone through a process where we've done some environmental sensitivity mapping, and it sort of overlaps with your water grid plans. So it might be an opportunity, because we do lots of reporting into DELWP, as you know, like things like sewer spills, so all the environmental impacts of these activities.
Yeah.
So there might be an opportunity to maybe overlap with some of the data that you guys are using. And on that note, so you're only as good as the data model you build in Power BI. So what was the data model that you built to support your visuals?
Actually, Alice might be better suited to sort of talk about that, because we sort of made that dimension table and then connected it to the data sources, but maybe you want to explain that a bit better.
Yeah, sure. So I think, yeah, you're totally right, Simon. It's only as good as what sits behind the data. This is a very curated data set. So we're not tapping into any of the back end kind of actual databases that sit behind this. So this was Meg and Rhiannon collating this data kind of using manual techniques into a curated master Excel spreadsheet. So it's very simple. So it means that we don't have a very complex data model. So each of these dashboards are actually, here we've embedded 5 different iframes. They're separated out as 5 individual Power BI reports. So say, for example, this urban water dashboard, we've got a map here. This map is built using Iconmap, which is a custom visual. Iconmap allows you to store the spatial data in Power BI as WKT. So then we've got the spatial data. It's just linked up to the water corporation name, which has it's probably like a water corporation kind of dimension table. And then we've got a kind of fact table with all of just the data which is in it. So it's very, very simple. Probably as simple as you can get with Power BI. We do have a few other there's a lot of graphical things in this Power BI report. So there's lots of supporting tables, mainly for the graphics, like things like this visual over here, where you can see the dialog box. This is the HTML content visual. So we need to have kind of extra info in there to kind of format as HTML. So there's not too much, it's not very complex in terms of the data. It was more the visualization component where all the complexity came in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thumbs up. Yeah, so it's very simple compared to what you'd probably be used to working on, Simon. But yeah, I think definitely Iconmap, if you haven't looked into it, I think I have chatted to you, Simon, about Iconmap. But if not, we've got some videos on our YouTube channel about Iconmap from previous meetups as well, if anyone is keen.
No, it's really good, really useful.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. And we've got Michael Barry with your hand up.
Hey guys, well done. I really like the flexing of Power BI into different presentation modes. So it's really cool that they're trying to do away with the sort of PDF that no one reads and try to make that a little bit more interesting, I guess. To some suggestions from the unknowing public, I would say if you had some sort of way of searching for my postcode or my suburb to group up to the projects. I don't necessarily know the pipelines next to my house, and I'd love to see photos in the tooltip, like little photos of each of the water courses.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Because there is a fair amount of text, so just like the photos of the frogs and stuff were pretty cool on the last one, and in the idea of animating your kind of water course, you could put in the play axis there, and you could flag each segment as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and you could have it animate just in steps down the pipeline. That would be quite cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Really cool ideas. And we could take a leaf out of Carrie's book and use all the cool animation you could do in HTML content and like fully animate things as well. No, I love it. I think the photos on a hover, if we had photos of the waterways, that would be a really cool one. Unfortunately, if we're talking about the synoptic panel up here, because this is a custom visual, this custom visual actually doesn't support report page tooltips, which is what you would need for this one. But I guess something maybe for the environmental flows. So we've got the on hover here, which brings up what its environmental objectives are. But we could also you could put a photo in there maybe if there is one, or Yeah, that's one of the challenges with the custom visuals. They don't support all of the features of Power BI. You could probably put a photo in here, maybe Meg or Rhiannon, when you click on it just down the bottom.
Yeah, I think actually originally when we built this one, it was with the idea of adding photos in each of the grid assets and the waterways, and we just didn't get those photos. So that's not to say we won't add photos in future. Just at the time, we actually just didn't have the capacity, time to get all those photos.
Yeah, it's hard because you might have photos for like 95% of them, but then you need them for all of them. I think the recreational, we've got the photos of the case studies as well.
Yeah.
So there are a few photos, but I think totally agree. Photos add heaps more context. It's just a matter of getting them all and getting them. You can't have it for like half of the data set. You have to have it for all.
Yeah.
So, and Chandni, if you wanted to ask a question.
Hi, Alice, and hi, Meg. It's really a great Power BI tool. Like, I loved it. The different visualizations that you have done, it's amazing. I just had a question. When you are making selections in the map, and how the are you changing the contents outside? How are you linking all those with the map and the, like, for example, and how is the grid helping to address rural water challenges map? So when we are making selections in the map, how we are changing the data outside?
I think it's just like a normal how Power BI interacts with normal visuals. It's just we're interacting with the visual here and it's filtering the data.
All right. So have you used any matrices to show this, or just the scorecards and normal visual?
No, yeah, we're using quite a few visuals on this. It's quite visual heavy. These are all cards with report page tooltips. This is just a text box. This is a button. So there's a few tricks behind the scenes with some things because some things have two buttons.
Yes.
But like, it's just kind of showing in high dynamic using conditional formatting, things like that. So it works exactly the same as Power BI. Usually works with all the interactions. You just have to there's a few design tricks which you can make Power BI do almost anything if you try hard enough. Probably not, some of them aren't the most efficient ways of kind of doing things, but because this was such a design focused project, it wasn't really a data project. We compromised and said, okay, yep, we'll build in these crazy features, but yeah, this just works as a normal visual because the map's interactive. It gets the context of what we have selected here and it updates the text box. So if we have nothing selected, this is just dynamic text. So it's just a measure doing, like, I think we're probably using selected value or switch true, something like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I really liked when you're making selections in the map, your buttons are changing. So that's really a good way to show more data. So
yeah, exactly. So you'll
I'll
notice
explore that option.
Yeah, so you can see we've actually got two buttons here. So you can't really get rid of it, but as long as no one hovers over here, it's fine. You click on it, it does nothing. But with buttons, you can do conditional formatting on the color, the font color, the text, the link. So you can conditionally format almost anything, except you can't conditionally format to take away a button. So we do have a fake button here.
Yeah, so when your dashboard is not that data heavy, then we can put these small checks in.
Yeah, but if you were doing more of a data focused report, then where design isn't so important, these things I would say would be a little bit of overkill because you've got heaps more things to update and just check that it doesn't fail when you add new data. There's a lot of hard coding of rules in here, so we can only have two buttons and things like that. But I think for this application, it's totally fine because our data is so easy to manage. We're just managing design, but really do keep it in consideration. I think you'd understand, like, once you get into bookmarks and conditional formatting, there's a lot more things to manage than just the data. So
awesome.
Great, so I think, oh, thanks, Chandni. Good to see you again. Cool. So I think we might have a couple more questions in the chat. Oh yes, Simon Walker's saying, Chandi, you need to present the Southeast Water environmental sensitivity mapping. We would love to have you back. Chandi's already presented on mapping for Kato and showing us all that cool stuff. So she's a bit of a mapping guru. So yeah,
Nice.
if anyone is keen to present, we would love to have you. Lots of nice comments here. Just a question, just wondering, is there any security concerns about allowing the public to see mapping of all the tunnels?
I can sort of answer that. So you mean the schematic. So if you go up, Alice, up to here, this is actually a schematic. So we've drawn it on a map. It's not, I think you would find it difficult to use this map to find an asset. So I think in terms of perspective, it's not exactly a real perspective. Nothing is to size or to measure. It's really a visual representation of it is in this location. Hopefully that answers that.
Awesome. Yeah, this is very, yeah, so it would be hard to find. This is just kind of for information purposes, but the actual location could be a bit different.
In saying that though, I think the Vic data does actually, as part of their data sets, does have quite a lot of pipelines that the public can get the actual data points for. I'm pretty sure. I don't think everything is on there, but I do think some of the major pipes are in those Vic data sets anyway.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of information is public these days. But thank you everyone so much. If you do have any more questions, just type them in the chat and we can kind of keep answering them as we go. But just in the interest of time, I just want to hand over to, well, firstly, thank you so much again, Rhiannon and Meg, for giving up a bit of your lunchtime and sharing the amazing work you and the team have been doing at DELWP. So now I just want to quickly hand over to, I'll stop sharing and hand over to Sam Fisher. So Sam Fisher, he's a bit of a Power BI guru, absolutely loves Power BI. He's a keen presenter at lots of the different Power BI meetups. He's got a blog, so Apex Insights. So if you haven't already, probably connect with him on LinkedIn. He's always sharing really cool, helpful articles as well. He's a keen member of the Melbourne Power BI user group as well. So a couple of you might have already met him there. But thank you so much for coming and joining us today, Sam, to share what your big takeaways were from MBAS and just share what's coming in Power BI this year. So there's heaps of exciting announcements. So I'll hand it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alice. Can I just confirm the screen sharing?
Yep, awesome. We can see it all.
Perfect. Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, so again, thanks for that introduction. I want to spend a little bit of time just before we get to 1 o'clock to talk about some of the big announcements that came out of the Microsoft Business Application Summit. So that's kind of a big annual conference where a lot of the big announcements around Power BI features for the coming 12 months get made. All right. So a little bit about me. I probably won't go through this too much because Alice pretty much had everything covered. So yeah, I'm a self-described Power BI guru based in Melbourne. I work as a senior data analytics consultant at Revenite. We're a Melbourne-based consultancy. We provide services around data governance, advisory, data stewardship, delivery on projects. So that being said, we don't specialize in the environmental industry like Discovery AI, but we're still very much part of that analytics ecosystem there. I myself am a Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate and Microsoft Certified Trainer. So I provide a lot of guidance to people in a lot of training sessions out there. And as Alice mentioned, I also have a blog called Apex Insights, where I go through a lot of cool Power BI tips and tricks. So feel free to check it out if you're that way inclined. So the Business Application Summit. This is an annual conference that Microsoft runs. They go through the big announcements that take place in the Power BI space. Not only that, but it usually covers other aspects of the Power Platform. So if you're ever dealing with anything around Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, those kind of announcements are covered in the summit as well. For the purposes of today, though, we're just going to focus on Power BI. And there were quite a number of different announcements made at the conference. I'm just going to go through probably about a half a dozen of them that are more leaning towards the data visualization side of things rather than the super technical aspects. And from this list of features that we're going to go through, even though a lot of the features announced at the conference are features that are coming out in the next 12 months, some of the features are already available for you to play with. So goals and the modern visual tooltips are already available. So it'll be great to kind of see the rest of these coming out as well. But let's go through the list. So first up, we've got goals within Power BI. So this is a new artifact that's now available within the Power BI service. So previously, we've already got artifacts in the service, such as data sets and data flows to house your data, and reports and dashboards to be able to visualize your data. And this is adding a new artifact called a scorecard. And what a scorecard is it allows you to track different goals that you or your organization might have, and have that presented in a data-driven way, so you can keep an eye on all your different goals in the one screen. So say in this example scorecard, we can see there's a number of different goals that are set against the Northwind organization, where they've got a primary goal to grow their revenue to $6 million for that financial year. You'll see that this goal has an owner, so there's someone that's held accountable to that. You can see that it's actually showing the current value of their revenue at the moment. So what's really interesting with the scorecards is you can tie the values that are the current state of those goals into the values that are coming from another report. So whenever that report gets updated with new data, this scorecard will also update to say what's your progress towards those particular goals for the organization. On top of that, there's also the Sparklines that you can set up to see how they're tracking over time. And also one thing that's really important to make sure that you've got a clear sense of how you're progressing towards your goals is to know the context around it as well. So there's also the ability to add in some notes to describe what's going on with your goals, especially if they're, say, falling behind a little bit. There may be perfectly good reasons why that's happening. And that note section with the commentary gives you a good way to go about that. So this is a feature that's already available to have a bit of a play with. At the moment, it's only available to people with either a premium per user license or with premium capacity within the Power BI service. But in the future, it may get opened up to like a pro license. But considering those early days, we'll just see how it goes as far as licensing. So that was one of the big announcements. We also got automated insights. So this is a really cool feature where say you've got a report such as this sample manufacturing analysis sitting on the Power BI service. Once this automated insights feature is released, you'll get this little button at the top here called that says Get Insights. And when you click on that button, what will appear is a little pane on the right-hand side that will actually use some machine learning algorithms in the background to identify what are some anomalies within my data set that may be cause for concern. So when the automated insights ran against this particular example report, it found that for this manufacturing analysis, there was a certain amount of downtime that had increased in recent days. So not only have the machine learning algorithms identified that, but it's also provided some possible explanations by digging into other aspects of the data set. So it might say that's because of some changes to the plant or because of maybe some changes to the vendors. But this is really going to save a lot of time for analysts out there who have to do a lot of this work manually, and it might take them hours, days to find these kinds of insights. You click a button and it'll be right there for you, and you can dig into it even further with the rest of your time. So I can see this being applied in a lot of different ways, especially outside of manufacturing, hopefully to the environmental industry as well. Some other cool features are around some new things getting added to Power BI Desktop. So one in particular is the Bookmark Navigator and the Page Navigator that's yet to be released. So at the moment, if you want to set up bookmarks to flick between different views in your Power BI reports, it can be somewhat cumbersome. You've got to have all your bookmarks set up exactly right. You've got to map them to different buttons, and it can be easy to kind of get things mixed up because there's a lot of balls to juggle as far as that goes. So what the Bookmark Navigator is going to allow you to do is, if you go to a report page like this, in this example, tracking vaccine rollouts, you might want to flick between different views of your data. So for some audience members, they might want to see your data represented in a map view, but other people just want to see just the raw data like a table. So what what you'll be able to do with the Bookmark Navigator is instead of having individual buttons, you actually have almost like a slicer pane to be able to easily flick between the different bookmarks that you've set. And that'll make it a lot easier for anyone building reports to be able to make those different views available to their audiences. So that's a really cool feature. On top of that as well, there's also the page navigator. So this is another similar kind of view where you'll have something like a slicer that you can have on your report page. But instead of being tied to different bookmarks, it's going to be tied to different pages of your report. And on top of that, you'll also be able to tie the options available to flick between the pages to different security roles. So you may have it so that someone in your organization may have access to all pages of the report via this basically slicer panel here. But for other people, they may only have access to the first few pages of that. And so it'll filter down their views. So they can only see that, the pages that they're concerned with. So this kind of page level security is something that's going to be really useful once this feature gets released as well. Now we've also got the modern visual tools. So this is a feature that's actually already available within Power BI Desktop and the Power BI service. But at the moment, what we've got here, this is the previous view of what tooltips would look like within your given reports in this kind of dark mode view. One of the challenges with this particular design of the tooltips is it's not always obvious to your report viewers whether or not there's the option to drill down or drill through to different pages. And as a report developer, you might put a lot of effort into building, say, a drill through page. But if your audience doesn't know about it, it can sometimes be a bit of wasted effort. So what the Power BI development team have done is they've created this new different looking tooltip where, first of all, it's on a white background, but also whenever you hover over any of the data elements, it'll also bring up the options for whether or not you can drill down into a hierarchy or if you can drill through to other pages here. And the fact that you don't have to right click on the visuals to bring up those options means that you're much more likely to get users using those other features within your report. So that's a really cool feature. As I said, that's already available in the most recent release of Power BI Desktop. And you can also enable it for reports on the Power BI service. Just, I think it's in the file menu for each report. We've also got Sparkline. So this is a feature that's actually already available in a lot of other reporting tools, and it's finally made its way into Power BI. So whenever you've got a table visual here, you've usually got some measure that gives you a value at a point in time. So in this case, the average daily vaccination rate in each US state. But to give a bit more context, you might want to know how that value varies over time. So that's where this little time series within the table appears. And this is what we call a Sparkline. So this is a feature that's finally coming to reports as well. So that'll be really cool. And then finally, we've also got a new feature coming around using Power BI in augmented reality. So if you happen to have, say, a HoloLens, not many people do, but if you're using any of those augmented reality tools, you'll be able to see Power BI reports embedded within physical locations and see, for example, this report that is talking about the performance of different elevators in a building. You get that report sliced down to those particular values and then shown against each elevator within an augmented reality view. So while that is really cool, really futuristic, the reality is that a lot of us don't exactly have a HoloLens just sitting around that we can use for that. But what the Power BI team have recognized is that, well, everyone's still got a way to use these kinds of tools, and it's basically with the phone in their pocket. So you can actually, in a future release, you'll be able to access a lot of this kind of stuff within the Power BI mobile app. So here's a little GIF to show that. So if you're walking around a given space and you're looking at things through your camera, you'll actually see your report showing within physical locations. That might tie into particular data that's related to where you're standing. So in this example, it's a vaccination center in the States, and it's showing information about the vaccinations per hour and about the throughput of people going through the vaccination line. So that can be tied to particular locations. Another thing that I really like about this as well is there's this little mini map at the bottom. It's kind of like a video game where it'll point out, where are there other reports within your local vicinity that you can go up to and explore. So that's a really cool feature that should be coming in the next 12 months that I'm really excited about as well. So besides that, there's a whole slew of other features that were announced at the conference. Some of them more technical around aggregating large data sets, such as hybrid tables and query improvements. There's more features coming to embed Power BI reports more within your Teams application. There's also going to be the ability to connect to Power BI data sets within Excel a lot more easily, and even to be able to quickly create reports out of SharePoint lists without even having to design them. You just click a button and they'll be already appearing for you. And that feature might even be available right now, I believe. But look, there's a lot of cool announcements that came out of the conference. If you're interested in any more of these kind of features, there's a lot of information online if you just search Microsoft Business Applications Summit recap. So you'll be able to see more information about that there. But otherwise, yeah, those are kind of my top picks there. And I might hand over to Alice if there are any, if she wants to moderate any questions that people might have.
Yeah, that was an awesome summary. Thanks, Sam. There's so many features out there. I think one thing which is really cool is, as you mentioned, the augmented reality coming for Power BI reports. It's so simple, but like imagine like in the water industry, we were chatting with the team at One and Water the other day about this one. They were getting really excited thinking, wow, we could pin their water treatment plant dashboards. They've got like different slices for different locations within the plant, and people are walking around the plant, they don't have a laptop, so you could pin the spatially pin the reports in space, and they could just kind of hover over their phone just to see what the latest data is, how it's trending. That combined with the streaming data sets, like imagine that real-time data, really easy, just hover your phone and you've got it. Like,
oh, absolutely, it'll be a real game changer. And I think once people get more, once it becomes much more prominent to be doing this kind of thing as an everyday tool, I think it'll be really useful, especially if you're going out, say, on site with people, to kind of show them their data actually embedded within space. It'd be really cool.
Oh, totally, yeah. There's a bit of excitement around. So Nazrin is excited for the Sparkline feature. And we've got a couple of other people. Yeah, Chandni likes the augmented reality. Everyone's just saying this is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Travis also loves the new tooltip feature.
You might have mentioned it, Sam, but which out of these are you sort of most excited about, mate?
Oh, look, it's like picking your favorite child, isn't it? Well, I know that the modern visual tooltips, this was a really simple change, but I was especially excited about that, mainly because, you know, you might put a lot of effort into building a drill through page, but it's all wasted if people don't know it exists. So this makes it a lot easier for that. Yeah, that's one that I'm particularly drawn to myself.
Awesome. Michael Berry likes the object level security and page selector. Those page buttons, that solves so much problem. That's like combining 10 visuals into one. If anyone has worked with page navigation and buttons, we had a few examples on the dashboard showed today. The problem is when you click on a button, you can do an action, but there's no select for it. So usually the trick is overlaying 2 buttons on top. So if you have 5 buttons, 5 navigation options, you end up with 10 visuals, which is annoying to maintain. And the more visuals on the page, the more it takes to render. This looks like you just click a button and it's there and it's nice. It's all distributed. It's proportional. It has the on-click effect.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really fascinating to see how much customizability there is in these options. So I'm hoping this also carries over to slices in general, so you can customize them in a lot more detail.
Yeah.
And hopefully we don't have to remember to update all our bookmarks all the time.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
Yeah, and there's if anyone is like kind of a real big Power BI enthusiast, you'd also know that the Build conference is on at the moment. So that's more for the developer focus rather than the applications. And I saw there was an announcement out of Build that they are coming up with easy measures for DAX. So that's going to be like a native language, kind of like how Q&A works or the Smart Narratives visual works, where you can easily type in what you want to solve and it will create DAX for you behind the scenes. That's kind of cool. I don't know if I would trust it right out of the box. You'd have to spend a lot of time making sure that you've got all the synonyms developed for all of your fields in your model, and you've got a very strong data model. But it's just there's heaps of announcements in this space. So
it's an exciting time.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. I don't think there are any questions, just heaps of everyone sharing all of the things they're excited about as well, and getting very excited about what you shared. So no, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course, anytime. I'll quickly just share screens so we can just wrap up where we're at. So as mentioned, Our next meetup will be probably the 22nd of June. So we'll get it up on the website soon. You can come along, save the date. And we're still looking for speakers. So I don't know, Chandi, I might reach out to you if you're still on the call and you can present on the Southeast Water Environmental Mapping Tool. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I would love to.
Awesome, cool. Okay, well then you will be the special guest.
I'll probably have to take permission from the Southeast Water and everything, licensing. Yeah. So yeah.
If
we'll
not,
sort that out.
It could be a few down the track as well. I think for July, we're going to have an energy focused again, all about clean energy. So we've got someone presenting from the Green
Building Council of Australia. They're doing some really cool things with Power Apps integrated into Power BI.
Yeah, working with Microsoft on that one.
Yeah.
So that one looks really cool. And we've also got Mim presenting as well on more big data. So big data in the energy space. He's doing some really cool. So anyone kind of interested in data wrangling and seeing how you can get lots of live data. He's pulling live data off the lots of APIs to do with energy. Not too sure about the details, but we will find out. So that's probably happening in July as well. If there are anyone keen on the call, like for any topics that you want to hear presented, or you know, a couple of cool case studies, or you yourself want to present, please, we're always looking for presenters. Please feel free to reach out to Christian and myself. We would love to have you as well. Awesome. So we'll upload the session of the recording of today's session to our YouTube channel and do a quick little recap on our blog as well, with all of the links and things like that. So if you've missed out on anything, you can catch up there and you can share it as well. So thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Sam. That was an awesome rundown on all those features. Can't wait to go check them out when they go live.
And thanks Meg and Rhiannon. Apologies, I was packing the car for our quick escape after this before lockdown hits. But I'll have to rewatch or watch your session in the thing. But thanks very much for presenting, and great to be able to sort of share that Vic Water Grid, and glad that it's being well received. So it's fantastic. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining, and good luck to all the Victorians out there with our 7-day lockdown. It will be virtual for a while. So
stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks,
awesome.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. See you later.
And